Welcome to the April 8th, 2019 Council meeting and public forum, and we're glad to see you all here. It is first council meeting back after a couple of weeks off, and looks like everybody is eager to say things to us. So we are eager to hear what you have to say. And also just want to make a comment that today, April, is Fair Housing Month, and the city is honoring Fair Housing Month, and we have a housing conversation coming later in the evening, and so we are well aligned with the concerns about equity in housing, and that's how we begin the day. Before I read the instructions about the public forum, I'm going to break with the pattern a little bit because I know a large number of you are here to talk about 5G. And sometimes when I wait, we have 51 people to speak, and if we wait till the very end to make comments, many of you will have gone home, and so you won't hear your comments. So I'm just going to share them now, and then you can play them back at me as you speak. A couple of things. So we have heard from many of you about an impending deadline, April 15th, around aesthetic standards, and I just want to remind you that we have those aesthetic standards. They're part of our ordinance, and they are posted on our website, and they have 5 essential criteria that have to do with undergrounding, about the technology should be, we call it stealth technology, so it's not visible, it's somewhat camouflage, fits in. We have limits on the total volume of equipment that can be mounted. We have regulations around ornamental and architectural features associated with it, and we have restrictions around not mounting telecommunications on traffic signal poles. So those rules are there, they've been in place, and we've already done that work as the city. The second thing is many of you are sending council health studies of various kinds and links to various health studies, and I will say, as I have said before, we share your concerns about the health studies. We recognize there are more questions than there are answers about 5G. And also to remind you that we are constrained by federal law that we have to allow the installation of telecommunications technology that complies with FCC standards. This is not up to us to determine the health effects of, it's an FCC ruling. And that brings me to my third point, which is this is the reason that the city of Eugene has directed its efforts towards the FCC and towards the federal government. So we have signed on, I have signed with 92 other mayors, we have signed an appealing the FCC's ruling around small cell installation. That's currently working its way through the court system. I have also signed on, and now our Congressman Peter DeFazio is a co-sponsor of Representative Eshu's legislation to overturn the FCC actions of August and September. So we continue to push on the FCC. We are joining other cities to push on the FCC. We are tracking that, and we believe that's where the leverage is to change the authority and change our capacity on the ground and not have our local rules preempted. That brings me to my fourth point, which is many of you have called for a moratorium on the installation of 5G. And I will again say, we are, if technology complies with FCC regulations, we are required by federal law to allow those to be installed in a manner in which they can function. So we can't, if small cell needs to be every 500 feet, we can't put in an ordinance that says they can only be every 1,500 feet because then it doesn't function. And that's a violation of the FCC rule. So I am saying on behalf of the council, and anyone on council is free to comment on this, we are not likely to push for a moratorium, an action for which we do not have legal standing, because we have taken the telecommunications industry could file a suit and we would not be in strong standing. So again, I'm saying we don't consider that a productive avenue. We're not pursuing that. Finally, I do want to say one more thing, which is I recognize that for you, as well as for us, there is a feeling that we are talking at each other and not with each other. And I would like to change that dynamic. So I have talked to staff about this. I would be happy on a regular, periodic basis to sit down with you, provide updates on where we are in the legal actions, where we are with the FCC, any other concerns that you may have about the installation, share that information, and provide you with an opportunity in a kind of a systematic and prioritized way to share the best health studies that you have found, rather than sending us so many, sort of unprocessed studies where we, as council and myself, it's too much for us to sort of sort through. So just sending out that I would be happy to do that, and we can proceed in that way. So with that said, we're always interested to hear what you have to say, and I just wanted to make sure that I got a few words out before you all go home and I don't get a chance to speak to you. Okay, so now we have 51 people signed up to speak, so I am gonna, actually, no, it's 52 people signed up to speak. So we will restrict it to 2 minutes today, because council also has a serious deliberation to conduct after the public forum. And I'll just review the rules on the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward, if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. The red light indicates the end of your 2 minutes. And one other, just another prompt, remember that we try to keep this as a safe and respectful place. Everybody deserves a quiet and respectful audience when they're speaking, so please keep your verbal commentary quiet. You can always signal your approval with wiggling your fingers. And we do ask that you not show signs, so no flashing of signs from the audience. Okay, so with all of that preamble, first up is Todd Boyle, followed by Margaret Thummel.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. On the 5G, I would just ask the FCC why the federal government is controlling radio signals that only go 500 feet. I thought their job was interstate commerce, They shouldn't be controlling Wi-Fi, cell phones, or 5G. And why are they controlling our cable TV and cable and net neutrality and everything else? The internet, come on, we'll set some state, let's grow some cojones. And on the fake CET, I think that each one of you should think about doing a John McCain and just say no on a fake CET. It's not a real thing. It's deceitful. It's structured crazy. If you're going to have a tax, have a tax. If you're going to have if you're going to allocate $1 million a year to low-income housing, that's great. Have a housing fund. Put $500,000 and put $1 million. So what I came here to talk about was low-income housing, as usual. And the city and county can do one of two things. You can either subsidize people who are below that. There's 50,000 people or so in the county living on less than $1,000 a month, and they can only afford a third of their income for rent. That's $350 a month. That's more or less equivalent to a $50,000 capital cost. And if there were $50,000 housing, then most of them would be able to pay rent or buy it. So you're going to end up either you're going to have to help them subsidize them up to where they can pay the rent, or you're going to have to make it possible for them to build or buy or somehow get housing for $50,000 a unit, and that's the number you should lock onto for all your public housing, including all the public housing, or you're going to have to displace them. If there's a fourth option, I don't know what it is. So it's one of those three things. You're going to have to let them figure out a way to house themselves, or you're going to end up subsidizing them, or you're going to displace them. And that's what's been happening all over the western United States. So, thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Thummel, followed by Tim Stewart.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council people. My name is Margaret Thummel. I've been involved in the community for decades. Some of you know me, some of you don't. However, I'm here not because of 5G or anything like that. I am here, one, to thank the city of Eugene, for being so kind, like yesterday, spending time, hours on end and thousands of dollars to find out how we can improve River Road. Well, for starters, let's start on Green Lane. It is a major drug area in Eugene. It is so bad that last night for an hour and a half, I was watching 4 people do drug activities, buy, sell, calling the police on 911. We are at a point in that neighborhood that those of us who are not involved in the drug trade in one form or another either vacate, which happened to the Veterans Home, the new Veterans Home that opened a couple of years ago on Green Lane next to LTD property. They literally left. They couldn't handle it anymore. I live across the street from this mess. We have, in the last 4 years, had nonstop with the sanctioned approval or original approval, not that they still approve it, from St. Vinny's, that it's a safe place to go and park your trailer, your RV, your pickup with whatever, and you can start selling, doing whatever you want to do. Some people have, bona fide license plates, others don't. And it is totally out of control. And the only thing I can say to that, we desperately need some action. The police.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just finish this, because this is very important. I know, but the problem is I thank EPD very much for having one officer in charge of all these wonderful vehicles. And this morning at 9 o'clock, they finally did something.
Thank you.
But
thank you. We have 50 people behind you, please.
There's one more comment, and that is we all are now carrying, because it's that unsafe.
Please, thank you. You can submit written comments as well. Thank you. Next up is Tim Stewart, followed by Seth Sadovsky. And a reminder that the second name can be in the warm-up seat there so that the transitions happen more quickly.
Hello, my name is Tim Stewart. I live on Lone Oak Loop, right at Green Lane. I, too, live next to the LTD property. We've noticed a large increase in crime in the last 2 years, homelessness. We now have to search the little play areas that the kids have in the apartment complex for drugs paraphernalia. We found needles, syringes and stuff like that in the playgrounds. We've come in and found human waste at the bottom of the swings. We've had to clean up before kids can play in the playgrounds. I've taken it upon myself to kind of start a neighborhood watch to make myself presence known so these people wouldn't linger. They're stealing stuff off our porches. We can't keep anything of value on our porches because they steal them almost instantaneously. Saturday, I was coming back from a dialysis appointment, and 15 feet off the road, there was a naked woman getting out of her sleeping bag under the trees, right on Lone Oak. We have a large increase of homeless people coming around. They search our trash cans. They dig out our mail. They scatter it all over the place. We need a stronger law enforcement presence, or another place for them to go, because, like she said, Margaret said, St. Vincent de Paul made it known, hey, this is a safe place, a good camping place for you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Seth Sadovsky, followed by David Ivan Piccioni.
Good evening, Mayor Vinnis and councilors. I'm Seth Sadovsky. I live in Ward 2. I come and talk to you a lot about specific steps I want you to take. Sometimes it feels like I can't get the big picture to get through, so tonight I'm going to speak more generally. Seems these days I can barely glance at the news without seeing new records of atmospheric carbon, extreme weather events, or children begging their elected leaders at every level of government to do more on climate change, often led by children from this very community, which does make us a little bit proud. It can be hard to know what to do. The challenge is literally the greatest threat that humans have ever faced, and no individual or even individual government can fix it. However, a medium-sized city with a moderate climate, full of people who care about the environment, should be a leader on this climate. I know that you can't fix climate change on your own, but our children shouldn't have to lead, and I want our city to lead. I see small things come by council regularly and see you carefully consider what the environmental impact of your decision will be. But when you discuss the biggest impact that you can have on climate, it seems that climate change is missing from the conversation. We will not solve climate change with our cities laid out in a manner such that most adults drive cars for most trips. You must work to make a city where we need fewer cars by supporting better buses, protected bikeways, and comfortable sidewalk infrastructure. But even with all that, we will fail to lead on climate unless we allow more people to live in the convenient parts of town. I watched your discussion on ADUs in February and did not see a city that can lead on climate. I also watched your discussion on HB 2001 in March and did not hear people who can lead on climate. I've been watching all your discussions on housing pretty closely for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'd really like you to start leading on climate. Thank you.
Thank you. David Piccioni, followed by Abraham Lickwarnick.
Hi, David Ivan Piccioni, Eugene, Oregon. There was a thing I noticed that I don't know if anybody else noticed, but Lucy Venus expressed her opinion about the 5G, but none of the other councilors did. That's something that I think that people want to hear. I'm not here to talk about this 5G, but I just noticed that. Anyway, there's a I was here since 5:30 listening to this proposition to tax businesses and employees, and I was wondering, I have a question, is Walmart going to be paying the same as Voodoo Donuts? I mean, how does that work? That doesn't make a lot of sense. A multi-billion-dollar company paying $8 or $12 and a little place there paying the same amount. I will propose another method of obtaining revenue. I was emboldened to speak about this after finding out of a group called LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. There's a lot of policemen, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and even judges that are very much opposed to the idea of this war on drugs strategy that we're employing today, which is doing nothing but hurting families, communities, the economy, and everybody's health, too, believe it or not. I don't know if Canada has done it in one city, Vancouver, British Columbia. They have a place there where they allow safe, monitored use of hard drugs, and there's been reports of a lot less problems than what we're having here. Portugal, the entire country legalized drugs, and they're having a lot better results than what we're seeing here. Half the people in the prison are in for drugs. It's a health problem, not a legal problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Abraham Lickwarnick, followed by William Colling.
Abraham Lickwarnick, domiciled Southwest Eugene. The first thing I want to say is that no government can even potentially do anything that causes harm. That's the first thing. And no government can tell another government to do anything that potentially causes harm. You have repeatedly been presented with highly credible evidence of the harm to health, safety, security, and privacy caused by 5G and smart meters. Even if you believe that this evidence is inconclusive, there is certainly enough evidence for reasonable doubt. you are required to always err on the side of prudence and the least amount of harm to the people and the environment. This you have not done. You allege that you must follow the FCC regulations on 5G or the telecom companies will sue the city. However, you have previously been provided with Supreme Court cases clearly explaining the anti-commandeering doctrine. For example, this quote from the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, writing for the majority in Prince versus United States. Quote, Congress cannot compel the states to enact or enforce a federal regulatory program. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the state to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. This means that the telecom companies can't rely on the FCC regulations to sue the city. You have the ability, the right, the authority, the moral and legal duty to deny permits to put up harmful 5G without any excuses. It's time to implement the precautionary principle, better safe than sorry.
Thank you. William Colling, followed by Pamela Wibble. Or Weibel.
Thank you. 2 minutes. I'm Dr. William Collins from Ward 2. I'm currently a researcher for the National Cancer Institute, and I also serve as a scientific reviewer for NIH. Today, I submitted to you by email several resources documenting the scientific evidence on the biological effects of cellular network radiation. There's no question these effects exist. They're demonstrated in hundreds of studies, and this is not a matter of debate or opinion. The mechanisms of action are known. I don't have time to go into what I was going to say on that. But 5G is a commercial product invented by an industry bent on forcing it into our environment, whether we want it or not, with no safety testing and no evidence of safety. To place this dangerous equipment in front of our homes and beam its microwaves into our bedrooms and children's playgrounds 24/7 would be a massive public health experiment. This is called human subjects research, but in this case, without human consent. In your City Council vision statement, the first goal you list is safe community. eWeb also lists safety as its first core value. While individual members of the public have the right to ignore science-based advice about their well-being, science denial by public officials making public policy that affects public health is a different matter. Fortunately, the FCC's attempt to override your authority over placement of small cell equipment is being challenged around the country as an overreach and is now in the Ninth Circuit, where it will likely be struck down. The FCC has no jurisdiction over intra-state commerce, and the California Supreme Court on April 4th affirmed the right of local municipalities to regulate small cell deployment in public rights of way. That was just the other day. So I'm urging you to join a lot of forward-thinking city councils around the country and take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Wibble, followed by Kathy Ging.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I'm Dr. Pamela Weibel, Ward 2, City Councilor Betty Taylor for the record. I'm a family physician practicing in Eugene, Oregon, speaking on behalf of my patients and vulnerable citizens of our town. As a medical doctor, I am against the untested proliferation of EMF millimeter-emitting mini cell towers in our neighborhoods. I request the Eugene City Council pass an emergency protective ordinance to stop 4 and 5G small cell installations near our homes and schools, and I understand your limitations with that from your previous comments, so I would hope that you could work at a national level with the FCC to safeguard our health at that level. Human exposure to man-made EMFs has increased to unprecedented levels, accompanied by increases in health problems from technologies that have never been tested on humans. This is particularly true for pulsed signals in the radio wave and microwave portion of the spectrum. Substantial scientific evidence reveals EMF-linked oxidative stress mechanisms, including damage to the mitochondria, which is the very basis of our cellular structure and energy-producing parts of our cells. These mechanisms have known involvement in induction of brain cancer, metabolic diseases such as obesity and diabetes, autism, autoimmune disease, and neurodegenerative conditions. Such radiation also has toxic effects on pregnancy, to the fetus, and subsequent offspring. It is critical to protect pregnant women and the ovaries of your young girls in your family and out here, you know, our grandchildren from the exposure of such toxicity. Radiation also has effects on the sperm and the DNA of sperm that may impact generations to come. So I am asking you to please to defend our community against a form of incursion that will lead to serious harm to some and set a terrible precedent for all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Kathy Ging, followed by Becky Bruckner.
Kathy Ging, Allen's Ward. First of all, don't buy a 5G device and stay away from anybody using a 5G device as if they were a leper. I hate to use that word, but I couldn't find a better one. Mayor and the council, please schedule a work session right away. Like Larkspur, California, population 12,000 is considering, and other communities like Petaluma, 60,000, have already passed. We need to pass an urgency ordinance regarding a 4 or 5G moratorium and an aesthetic detail change to existing ordinance that does not cover 5G. It must be passed by April 15th. Not handcuffed, we don't have to take this assault on neighborhoods and up to 20 to 25% property devaluation, which should affect the tax base. Coordinate interactive meetings with citizens to draft an urgency ordinance. See video of Larkspur and other communities at scientists4wiredtech.com/Larkspur or other communities from April 3rd, a few days ago. 5G has not been tested on humans. Mayor Vinnis heard international toxicologist Thoreau, PhD, report that over 4,000 rats and 2,000 mice experienced damage to interior organs from millimeter waves. They were not highly pulsed, which 5G will be. This is real science. And I did send you some CIA documents that Dr. Paul sent me from Portland today, translations from Russians regarding the rats and the mice. Essential to grasp is that extraordinary high pulsation allows data to be transmitted super fast, but it can trigger more multiple adverse health effects. We're talking about effects on blindness. We're going to have increased blindness in this community, effects on testes for boys, effects on skin, effects on sweat glands, etc. We need to pass a moratorium on installs or completions of 4 5G. Thank you. And how many people are here because they're anti-5G?
All right, there we go. Becky Bruckner, followed by Sabrina Siegel.
Hello, my name is Becky Bruckner, and I have been reviewing your telecommunications ordinance number 20083, and I am finding inconsistencies with what it says and what I actually see going on in Eugene. I'm very worried about the 5G small cell installations, and I find this information troubling. It doesn't seem like you're adhering to your own ordinance. In this particular ordinance, it says that the telecommunications facilities must be located, installed, and maintained in a manner that minimizes visual impact and preserves views and is consistent with the City of Eugene adopted land use plans and policies. Well, I don't see how that's true because you're violating it by this picture alone. That pole is on 21st and Potter. I've been there myself and walked around the pole and the home, and it's right in the front yard of the home. I don't know if you can see this. This is from your website. And it's really large when you get there. It looks much larger than in this picture, but it's right at the front door of this man's house. So that's in violation of this code, seems to me. And it says also at number 3 in this code, the public must be protected from adverse safety consequences stemming from the installation, maintenance, and operation of telecommunications facilities in the city. I don't see how that's working out very well. You're violating your own ordinance. And here on page 14, it says the requirements for a public notice. We're not being publicly notified. And there's more. I probably don't have time to talk about it. I know I don't want one of these at my house. I really don't. So I'm going to submit this picture so you can see it.
Thank you. Thank you. Sabrina Siegel, followed by Colin Farnsworth.
Good evening. Sabrina Siegel and Allen's ward. 4 of us are going to read from a testimony by Attorney Harry Lehman on 5G for avoiding, to help the city to avoid liability and while protecting citizens. And before I do so, I would also like to request an emergency work session on 5G. And you must know that your ordinance is not robust enough, your aesthetic ordinance. And you could use the aesthetic ordinance to protect us. Anyway, let's see. So this is his remarks to Larkspur City Council in California to adopt an emergency moratorium ordinance by April 15th deadline restricting 5G. Dear Larkspur City Council, on Monday this week, the city of Brussels, Belgium, elected to ban 5G within Brussels based on health concerns. The Minister of the Environment, Housing, Quality of Life, and Energy said, I cannot welcome such technology if the radiation standards, which must protect the citizen, are not respected, 5G or not. The people of Brussels are not guinea pigs whose health I can sell at a profit. We cannot leave anything to doubt. And then he says a fast overview on the long haul. For well-documented health reasons, the city of Larkspur, or Eugene, should refuse to allow 5G distribution here. But it is not necessary to make that long-term decision tonight because it is amply clear evidence shows.
Thank you.
And it will be provided. And anyway, the FCC, as you know, is a captured agency.
Thank you.
It's captured by the telecom.
Thank you. Colin Farnsworth, followed by Adrienne Myers.
Hey there, I'm Colin Farnsworth. I am Ward 1, Eugene resident. Going right after that regulatory hijack by these corporations taking over, this is also seen with the FAA recently with these Boeing crashes. They gave a lot of regulatory control over itself for Boeing, and now we see these crashes, and the same thing is happening now with the FCC. I'm continuing with this letter from Lehman, the attorney, and I'm also asking for the request of a work session. You guys do have the ability to defend our health and safety, and with all these studies coming out, you know, it does put into constitutional question the preemption of the federal government under the FCC. So the telecommunication industry's position is that living tissue cannot be damaged by non-ionizing radiation from cellular devices, and quote, non-ionizing radiation does not have the sufficient power to displace an electron from a shell. Therefore, it is impossible for microwave radiation to cause any direct non-thermal ionic effect on tissue. However, it is correct to state that it is not possible for non-ionizing radiation to force ionic injury of tissue. However, for at least 2 reasons stated here, the acoustic DNA fracture and calcium ionic cell damage is the fact that ionic change does not have to occur for these levels for it to create damage. The vibratory nature of DNA brand breakage is illustrated in the University of Maryland intrometer experiments in 1983, and the fact is that just because it doesn't create the heat necessary for cancer does not mean that it does not have the capacity. And you should really dive into this. At first, I was equally skeptical, and as I get deeper and deeper into this, it is just clear that this stuff is going to mess us up. And as it comes out, originally it will be very low range, but it actually can be turned up. And so let's stop this regulatory hijack. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Myers, followed by Robin Bloomgarden.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. My name is Adrian Myers at Ward 2. I'm continuing the letter for Larkspur. All these years, the industry has been saying the vibration won't hurt you, no harm until you cook. However, Dr. Henry Lay's findings from the University of Washington School of Medicine prove that DNA strand is broken by exposure to cellular signal, established beyond rational scientific doubt. Dr. Lay's findings have never been disproved, and if industry could have, they would have. The calcium ion analysis from Dr. Martin Paul of the University of Washington School of Medicine proves cellular damage. Dr. Paul's calcium ion conclusions show that tissue damage is multi-axial with DNA strand breakage and calcium ion cell damage both taking place. Finally, and most recently, see the final report from the National Toxicology Program of the U.S. National Institutes of Health on the results of the NTP's $25 million study of whether cellular radiation causes cancer. As demonstrated in the NTP's final report of November 2nd, 2018, cellular radiation does in fact cause the formation of glioma cells, the rootstock of glioblastoma, the brain cancer that kills. Larkspur faces liability from 5G antennas. In California law, state, regional, and local governments cannot be sued for negligence. Rather, the basis for which a suit may go forward against a state or element thereof will and must be grounded in a statutorily prescribed cause of action. Most commonly in these governmental tort situations, seasoned counsel will file first a governmental tort claim alleging dangerous condition of public property, and thereafter post-denial of the claim. The central plead liability theory of most such cases is just that, dangerous condition of public property. The defendants in a lawsuit do not get to choose whether or not to be sued. That choice is made by plaintiff's counsel. There is no way for any industry representative to honestly claim that the state will not be sued for such injuries.
Thank you. Thank you. Robin Bloomgarden, followed by Krista Rojas.
Robin Bloomgarden, I'm in North Eugene. More of the letter. These public utility poles are demonstrably dangerous within the meaning of Government Code 835 because the radiation they emit has been scientifically proven to be carcinogenic, and the radiation is damaging to the human biological system. Therefore, on the above basis and on other theories, including joint venture and several liability for the concurring acts of independent tortfeasors, public entities face becoming the insurers for telecoms where 5G is concerned. Alternatively, in contractually allowing the telecoms permissively to use regional entity utility poles, any such voluntarily compliant public utility entity has direct involvement as a participant in the tort due to joint venture, doctrine of fixtures et al., leaving pole owners permanently open to claims for such who-defined industries, cases unknowable number, without end. It is reasonable to believe that if 5G is permissibly allowed by public entities, each such entity will face litigation from many of such injured persons or their survivors. Those entities who cooperate with telecoms potentially face litigation from every seriously injured person. If such an entity will simply say no to 5G, the scope of litigation will remain narrow, at least for several years. There are substantial legal and constitutional issues now before the Ninth Circuit where many municipalities as well as some of the telecom entities have sued to stop the FCC from seizing utility poles owned by public entities. That action has been recently transferred to the Ninth Circuit. It is reasonable and prudent to hold off on any permit issuance until the law has become clarified through this Ninth Circuit litigation.
Thank you.
Signed, Harry Lehman, PC.
Thank you. Krista Rojas, followed by Robberly High Hirsch.
Krista Rojas, River Road neighborhood. During a presentation on the hazards of 5G wireless technology, Magda Havas, Associate Professor of Environmental and Resource Studies at Trent University and an expert in electromagnetic pollution, stated that she was concerned over the rollout of 5G, which would require between 30 and 300 gigahertz, which does not penetrate buildings well, so it would require numerous antennas for coverage. She continued, noting it will not be possible to avoid radiation. She stated, I personally believe that 5G is going to be harmful and to expose the entire planet to this radiation. It just doesn't make sense to me without proper testing. Havas said the World Health Organization declared radio frequency radiation, RFR, a probable carcinogen, as evidenced from human epidemiological studies. And they have shown that there is an increase in 2 different kinds of brain tumors from cell phones. And the reason we've bombarded you with these studies is because we've been appealing for some time now and really not gotten a response that's going to protect us or our children or our grandchildren. So we're here again, and we're letting you know what other communities are doing to protect their people. And as in the case of climate change, we have a few scientists, big wireless scientists, that refute these, but it's like the deniers of climate change.
Thank you. Robberly High Hirsch, or Hay Hirsch, followed by Victor Odlevac.
Roberly Hirsch is.
Roberly, sorry.
I'm with the Southeast Neighbors. I moved here in 2008 to help out with the Brahma Kumari's Worldwide Spiritual University Meditation Center here in Eugene, which has been here for so many years. I moved up here to help Sister Karen with the meditation center there, and I live across the street. And she asked me to join Families for Safe Technologies, Families for Safe Meters, because we are very concerned too. As a spiritual organization, we're very aware of the importance of our thoughts, and we know that our thoughts are really challenged by this modern instruments, cell phones, and one of the things cell phones do is they divide our attention up, and attention is a resource for the soul to create thoughts. And if our attention is always broken up throughout the day, then we lose the ability to concentrate and therefore to develop spiritually as souls. So we're very concerned about this. We have counseling status in the United Nations. We have 10,000 centers around the world and over 1 million practicing students. And this is an issue that we definitely stand with Families for Safe Technology on. I asked Sister Karen, what do I say in 3 minutes or 2 minutes with all this evidence of books that I've been given by Families for Safe Meters? That one book is 17 years of research going back to Tesla and the earliest history of electronics, showing dangers to human health all the way up to the present time, all documented. And so there's so much evidence that this is not a safe technology, and there's so much evidence of the tremendous damage that it would do to the community. I would want to live here if there was a 5G tower.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Victor Odlevac, followed by Jesse Hubby.
I am Victor Odlevac, resident of Lorraine Highway, South Hills. We need to do what Brussels has done. They had a huge amount of pressure on them. It's over 450 million people, and they said no. The Minister of Environment, she said, this cannot be. Anything over 1 milliwatt per meter squared is dangerous. 5G puts out 95 milliwatts per meter squared. That alone is the end of it. That's what we need to do. And also I would like to just share a letter from somebody here in Eugene. He says, I am very concerned in general about the installation of smart meters and 5G in our city. He lives on Carmel Street, and he's doing work for an elderly person. Her husband has had cancer last spring, survived treatment, but is struggling to get his energy back. They have an adult son who has a brain disorder. He says, I am scared to continue working for this lady at the house once 5G goes live. I already get too much radiation exposure doing house cleaning for homes that have lots of Wi-Fi and smart meters, digital meters. So he says, is there anything we can do to demand it gets moved? Who would we contact to demand that it is moved? Is there any legal action they can pursue? She said she could probably get her neighbor who shares the property line to speak up too. I'm trying to figure out how to inform her without freaking her out too much. If I provide her with the information on what to do, I think she will speak up. I wish more people knew how bad this is.
Thank you. Thank you. Jesse Hubby, followed by Paul Prince.
Hi, I'm Jesse Hubie, and I live in Ward 1, and I'm just a young person from this community who's grown up here, and I'm just very concerned about the 5G thing. I don't think there's any more data I can really present at this point. It's just thank you for what you're pushing for on the federal level, and I think it's clear that it's an emergency. So just whatever you can do to put an end to it for now would just be the only thing to do. So thank you for all you do, and yeah.
Thank you. Paul Prince, followed by Joshua Korn.
My name is Paul Prince, and I live in West Eugene, and I'm going to read partially the testimony of Dr. Sharon Goldberg, internal medicine physician, a former medical school assistant professor, and academic with more than 2 decades in the field. She gave her testimony to Michigan Legislature October 4th, 2018. Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms, plants, animals, insects, and microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question we have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. 5G is an untested application of a technology we know is harmful. We know it from the science. In academics, this is called human subject research, and that was Dr. Sharon Goldberg. I'd like to add just a couple observations, and my thoughts are the proven health and brain effects and damage of 5G that are part of the public record make its forced deployment not only unconstitutional, in my opinion, but a threat to every citizen's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Korn, followed by Joe LaFleur.
Hi, Mayor and City Council. My name is Joshua Korn, resident of South Eugene. And I understand your position on the FCC and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, but I'd like to point out that the arguably highly unconstitutional and highly outdated Telecommunications Act of 1996 does not impede a local municipality from protecting its citizens against a harmful technology. And by not protecting your citizens, us, you're really putting yourself into a position of massive liability. And I also want to point out something that kind of puts all this stuff that you've been hearing tonight in perspective, because the telecommunications industry has actually been self-insured for decades now. And the reason that they are self-insured is because even though there's a lot of controversy over the technology and the safety of the technology, the one thing that's clear is the insurance carriers know that there is massive liability on this technology, and they will not back the industry. And that is something that you should keep in mind when you consider your position on this technology, because you're putting yourself in a position of massive liability by following an unjust, highly outdated act. And last time I talked about the active denial system and how it relates to 5G. I think something that I'd like to point out, since we have limited time, is you hear that non-ionizing radiation only penetrates a few millimeters. There's been a study on calves from mothers that were grazing near cell towers, and they had high incidence of cataracts in their young. So that proves that that's not.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe LaFleur, followed by Cynthia Kokis.
Joe LaFleur, we own a piece of property at 28th and Elmadden in Eugene there, where my boy lives, but we live out on the lower McKenzie, where I've been living for the past 67 years. And what I'd like to describe is the effect that I've seen that microwaves have had on the biota out there. Every single spring we had the return of the swallows that would absolutely line the power lines along Oak Point Road going down to Bellinger Boat Landing. And they all returned in the spring of 2010, and then they left one morning. They all left in unison, and it was coincidence with the microwave towers across the river changing from 3 to 4G. And I don't know what 5G is going to do, but those swallows, when I mentioned it to my neighbors who live in Upper Camp Creek, they said, oh, your swallows must have all come up here. And sure enough, they relocated to a microwave dead zone in Upper Camp Creek. And I've gone back every year after that. And last year was the biggest flock of swallows I've ever seen anywhere in my whole life. But they have left our place, and so had the birds in the yard and the bees, and we didn't have any fruit on our trees for 2 years now. And I started taking note of the missing birds, and now they have abandoned all of our reservoirs and lakes. Any of you who drive by places like Lookout Point and Dexter and Leeburg Lake notice that these birds are gone. In fact, the swallows don't even come back to Capistrano anymore. But what I began noticing also then, I go hiking every night up in the hills above the McKenzie, and I've noticed that other wildlife is missing now too. And this people coming down with this microwave hypersensitivity, I've met several of them, and you can expect more if you go through with this 5G stuff. And people who develop this, they won't be able to get away from it. And my question is, if we cannot turn to you politicians to protect us from this stuff, who are we supposed to turn to?
Thank you. Thank you. Cynthia Kokis, followed by Hope Vasher.
Good evening. Hey, something different. I'm talking about the construction excise tax, which was passed in 2016 by the Oregon legislature. It was to allow local governments to adopt new construction excise tax for the sole purpose of helping house lower-income people. Our city council that year declared we were in a housing state of emergency. During that year, there were visits to the mayor, speakers at city council, there were forums, there was all that sort of stuff. In 2017, October, Churchwomen United came and urged passing of the construction excise tax. That very time, the Intergovernmental Housing Policy Board urged adoption of the construction excise tax, with the proceeds to go into the Eugene Housing Trust Fund. In 2018, in February, the Neighborhood Economic Development Corp., NEDCO, and Cornerstone Community Housing urged adopting the construction excise tax. That same time, City Council held a work session. In April of 2018, the League of Women Voters study stated that 1% of the CET would bring in about $3 million a year, that it was a flexible source of funds, and 2/3 of it would be from the commercials. In 2019, will we begin to join others like Bend, where they leverage $10 in spending for affordable housing for every $1 they get in CET? Will we rethink and rewrite a proposal that has anything to do with taking money from the general fund? Well, we will not take money from that. We will use the tax money we've gotten from the CET. I'm beginning to wonder if Mother Jones was right. God created women. Rockefeller and his gang of thieves created ladies. I'm tired of being a lady.
Hope Fasher, followed by Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton.
I live in Zelenko's ward. Many of the 5G cells are in South Eugene. Last time I was here, I failed to mention exactly why the antenna that's sited 5 feet from my driveway, 40 feet from the front of my house, and in plain sight of my bedroom window has essentially ruined a part of my life. My granddaughter, 6 years old, has a rare autoimmune disease. If you don't know about those, there's a condition called leaky gut, and she cannot be exposed to these levels of EMF radiation. So she has parents who understand the scientific studies and understand the dangers of this type of technology, and she's no longer allowed to come to my house. So, no more backyard play, no more art projects, no more babysitting, no more cooking projects, nothing. End of that meeting, not a single counselor asked the city manager or any staff to come back with a work session. I appreciate that the mayor at the end of the meeting did thank us for showing up, but that was all we got. A thank you for showing up. No one asked for a work session. That's what we're asking for. The buck stops with you. There are decisions being made about these 5G installations that you may not be aware of, but you should be. While it does appear the decisions are being made by somebody other than you, it also appears that you are all unaware of these decisions, and that itself is bad governance. For example, there's several things you probably don't know. You're relying on your Mayor, you talked about all your ordinances that exist and protect the public and have aesthetic standards, but they're not being adhered to at all. Your own provisions say that the poles themselves should be designed for the aesthetic characteristics. They say that they should not be within plain sight of a single-family residence, but that's where they're going.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we should be building a record, so I'd like to add my documents.
Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton, followed by Martha Bryson.
I'm Jennifer Frenzer-Knowlton, and I'm in Betty Taylor's ward, and I'll be speaking tonight about the construction excise tax. In 2018, the United Nations Human Rights Council announced a study finding that 40 million people in the United States live in poverty, and more than half of them live in extreme or absolute poverty. It's an overwhelming fact, and delayed action as policymakers allows these problems concerning poverty to grow, including our response to housing. The Oregon legislature has made sure local jurisdictions are empowered to act with the construction excise tax in order to fund housing programs, services for affordable housing, and to, in part, alleviate the impacts of poverty in our community. Please don't balk at the rate. Corvallis, Hood River County, Cannon Beach, Portland, Newport, they've all passed a 1% CET, and 35% of that revenue is allocated to affordable housing. Please follow their lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha Bryson, followed by Barb Prentice.
I am a 64-year-old widow who needs and cannot find affordable housing in our city, even though I have substantial stable income and references. For every vacancy, there are approximately 140 applicants in a slow month, according to 6 of the major property management companies here. But what I really want to talk about is the exemptions in the proposed construction excise tax ordinance. I searched for housing every day for 8 months and was not able to find any accommodations. We cannot wait 2 years to see revenue from these taxes. It is unacceptable to cap the tax and limit the revenue that could be generated to help people like me who are temporarily housed and those that are living on the streets. In 2 years, how many more homeless will be trying to survive on the streets? The last thing we need is another housing complex with postage stamp sized apartments renting for $800 a month. These are not accessible physically to folks like me in a wheelchair, and they are not accessible financially to those disabled folks whose only income is SSI, which is only $771 per month in Oregon. There needs to be no exemptions on the CET except for nonprofit housing development. The very definition of affordable is often nowhere close to what poor folks can afford, even those working full-time in low-wage jobs. We need income-based affordable housing, not more housing considered affordable to those who earn $50,000 a year or more. To house our homeless neighbors, we need to build affordable housing using the Housing First model, which gets folks off the street and then links them to services to get their lives back on track. I believe you have a moral and a fiscal obligation to leverage as much tax revenue as possible to aid in funding the building of desperately needed affordable housing.
Thank you. Barb Prentice, followed by Michael Kerrigan.
Hi, I'm Barb Prentice. I live in Greg Evans' ward, and I'm the raging granny, but I'm going to spare you any singing tonight. I'm not here to talk about 5G, but I hope you have all been listening very carefully, because I certainly have. I'm here tonight to protest the ordinance concerning unlawful transfer on vehicle portion of right-of-way panhandlers. My understanding is that this council will be discussing and perhaps voting on this next week on April 15th. Since panhandling is protected under the right of free speech in the Oregon Constitution, this is to all intents and purposes an anti-panhandling ordinance disguised as a safety issue. How many accidents have actually occurred? I know that the city manager's office has received many complaints about panhandling. When I moved here from Western Massachusetts, I'll admit that I was surprised to see so many people with signs at street corners and so many homeless adult men, women, and teenagers. I appreciate the work done by activists and nonprofits and the council to provide services for the homeless population. But this population has only grown in the 13 years I have lived in Eugene. I've observed many efforts to ban the homeless from downtown, from removal of benches to the exclusion zone, to the dog ban, to the smoking ban, and to the latest proposal of a downtown activity zone. I know that I sometimes feel guilty when I see panhandlers and don't give them anything, and I suspect that others feel the same. I think it is partly this guilt that wants to see them gone. We would prefer not to know that these people are in our midst, but they are, and have the right to be there as much as you or I. Please don't pass this ordinance and stigmatize them even more.
Thank you. Michael Kerrigan, followed by Darcy Phillips.
My name is Michael Kerrigan. I live in Ward 7, and I'm the Shelter Rights Coordinator for Community Alliance of Lane County. And we are joining with homeless advocates and ally organizations in supporting the passage in Eugene of a 1% construction excise tax. CETs are a powerful tool that provide communities the means to fund affordable housing programs which help alleviate the impacts of poverty in our community. We should join with other communities like Corvallis that have passed a strong 1% CET. We support the following: the immediate passage of a 1% CET, removing the $1 million tax cap, removing the exemption for projects receiving a MUPTI, removing the SDC waivers, including a requirement that at least 20% of CET revenue be used for the benefit of people at 30% of the area median income or below. We have a housing and shelter crisis in this community, and we need to take the strongest possible action to deal with it. And passing a 1% CET would be a strong example of that. Also, too, joining my friend Barb, also oppose any the panhandling ordinance that might come before you in the weeks ahead. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak with you tonight.
Thank you. Darcy Phillips, followed by Tiffany Edwards.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Darcy Phillips, and I am a resident of Councilor Pryor's ward. I'm also the Executive Director for Cornerstone Community Housing. First, thank you for all of your tireless work on the construction excise tax. It's been a long haul, and I'm grateful for your thoughtfulness on this matter. As a hopeful recipient of these funds, I too have been thoughtful about the CET. And for this reason, I'm asking you to support the city manager's original proposal presented to you in December of 2018. This proposal creates a powerful incentive for those involved in the process. This includes continued work on the tools and strategies outcome, and it will incentivize innovative and responsible distribution of the CET funds. Many folks have pointed to Bend as the poster child for successful CET. Bend has built and managed a system that's been incredibly productive in adding housing. And they're doing this with a 0.33% CET. When asked why the tremendous success, their answer has been twofold. First and foremost, the Bend City Council is innovative. They're not afraid to try new ideas, and they think far beyond status quo. And second, the Affordable Housing Committee that manages the funds is a diverse group of vested stakeholders who know how to capitalize and leverage every dollar that's generated by their CET. Right now, in our community, we have an opportunity to make a difference. Together with the hard work of City Council, city staff, and advocates who support affordable housing, we can set this tool in place in a way that will be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Edwards, followed by Ed McMahon.
Mayor Venice and members of council, I'm Tiffany Edwards from Ward 5, and you've heard me speak many times about the construction excise tax and the position of the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, a lead partner of Better Housing Together. But tonight I'd like to share my personal perspective and observations of this process as I've been entrenched in the CET conversations for over a year now. I'd like to share some thoughts about what the collaborative approach has meant to me. I'm deeply involved in a number of community efforts that will require collaboration to produce real outcomes, whether it's homelessness, public safety, downtown revitalization, housing, transportation planning, neighborhood planning. And while disagreements are inevitable, it doesn't mean we give up and do nothing because we just can't agree. This process has shown me what we're capable of. People who have been doing this work a lot longer than me have said, this is the first time I've actually felt like there's hope for our community. Tonight's vote on the CET isn't just about a tax to create an affordable housing fund, and it's not about 0.5% or 1%. It's a decision that has the opportunity to recognize the way we can be making decisions collaboratively, together, in partnership, outcome-driven, and with broad support. Each one of us, as with each one of you, can find imperfection in the CET policy that we've come to support. But still, we've done the tough work of bringing this large group of diverse interests together and come to a consensus on something that we can all live with, and more importantly, it's something we can walk away feeling good about the decision, about our leaders, and about our community. So please, tonight, support the CET introduced at 0.33%, capping at 0.5%, until further analysis done in 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed McMahon, followed by Laura Ohanian.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Ed McMahon, Executive Director of the Home Builders Association of Lane County, located at 1065 River Road. You've heard my testimony pertaining to the CET several times, so there's no need to repeat that. I'm sure you understand where we're at on it. So I come tonight with a request, actually a plea. Please go back and approve the city manager's original recommendation. I don't recall anyone having a problem with the 2-year review as being part of the ordinance. Why have a 2-year review if we already know what we're going to do in the 3rd year? Let's get the program going, take a look at it in 2 years, have the right information, and then make the right decision. Please.
Thank you. Laura Ohanian, followed by John Thielking.
Good evening. My name is Laura Ohanian. I'm in Emily's ward. Well, I can't articulate the 5G issue any better than all the previous speakers. So I'll address this issue of preemption. I know that the feds preempt the state and the states preempt our local communities, but the only way things seem to really change is when we do civil disobedience. And I'm talking here about community civil disobedience. As soon as I heard about the 5G rollout, it just sounded like it was exactly where unjust laws are preempting our communities from being able to protect ourselves from corporate harm. And I work with Community Rights Lane County about just such issues. And we've got to stand up for our people and our animals and our insects and all the living things that are going to be affected by this horrible radiation. We don't see it, we don't smell it, we don't think it exists, but there's a plethora of health issues that are affecting people now. And the graphs superimpose perfectly with the rollout of cell phones.
Thank you. John Thielking, followed by Bonnie Sousa.
John Thielking, Ward 1. Not everything I say in this speech is the way I want the perfect world to be, but I really feel that these strategies have the best chance of producing a world that I can live in. According to the book titled The End of Ice, the last time that there was a 410 part per million concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, the average global temperatures were 7 C above baseline, not 1.5 or 2 C above baseline. What this means is we better stop just tinkering around the edges with climate recovery this and clean energy bill that. We need to stop eating beef by making better tasting burgers than straight beef by using half pork, half beef, or even half pork, half turkey with a land use footprint that is 38 to 90% less than straight beef. We don't have time to let the next generation take over and start eating less meat. This must happen now. With the land area that is freed up when beef goes out of production, use that land to replant trees at higher than natural density and grow hemp and make hempcrete or biochar. About 5G. The latest info I have on 5G is that Verizon in a one-year study and a video showed that 5G is not blocked by trees. 5G base stations actually have a range of over 3,000 feet. So this means that an ordinance to outright ban 5G is one good way to stop it. Failing that, you can use the aesthetic ordinance to at least have the requirement that base station antennas cannot be located in residential areas. The reference for this remark is linked to the comment section of my blog post on 5G on couchhusting.org. Finally, I am very disappointed about the new pedestrian 8-foot clearance rule for sidewalks that may be driving the new sales restrictions in the downtown activity zone, or DAZ, that eliminates all but 2 or 3 spots to sell Sunday through Friday, and has its free speech spots on Saturday also under serious attack. There is a meeting about this at the Toaster Church, 1376 Olive Street, tomorrow at 4:30 to 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Sousa, followed by Dave Fidenki.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Souza, and I'm speaking tonight as a resident of Eugene and as a member of the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon. I live in Betty Taylor's district, or ward. I'd like to speak in strong opposition to the proposed change to Eugene Code 1971. The changes to this ordinance would impose a $50 fine on anyone handing an item from an unparked car to a pedestrian. Unlike traditional anti-panhandling ordinances, which have time and again been found to be unconstitutional, this proposed change would turn the tables and discourage Good Samaritans from giving items, anything from cash to food to a basic survival kit, to people experiencing homelessness and poverty by threatening them with a fine. In a letter he sent to the Eugene City Council on February 19th, ACLU Legal Director Matt Dos Santos outlined 3 reasons the ACLU of Oregon opposes this ordinance. They are, it penalizes those who seek to help others by providing money, food, or other items necessary for living. It would likely fail to meet constitutional muster if challenged due to disparate enforcement. And it is bad policy because it seeks to address the growing housing shortage through penalties that do nothing to solve the underlying problems that land people on the streets. Ultimately, this ordinance does nothing to alleviate homelessness for some of the most vulnerable members of our community. People who are experiencing homelessness and severe poverty need options to earn income to meet their daily needs. Rather than attempting to criminalize people's survival, we as a community should be coming up with solutions that address the root causes of our community's homelessness crisis. There is not enough supportive and affordable housing. Finally, while the ACLU has pointed out that, as written, this ordinance may survive a facial constitutional challenge, but it will likely be enforced disproportionately toward those individuals giving to people experiencing homelessness. That disparate enforcement would likely be found unconstitutional. I strongly urge you to vote no on amendments to Eugene Code 1971 on April 15th when this proposal is before you. In short, this proposal penalizes kindness. Please vote no on the unlawful and unkind transfer ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. David Fidenki, followed by Timothy Morris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. David Fidenki, a resident of Alan Zelenka's ward. And I, too, am appearing to urge you when the proposed ordinance on unlawful transfer comes up next week at your meeting to vote no. I had a chance this afternoon to read the minutes from your February 19th public hearing and noted Councilor Clark's question about the impact this ordinance would have on the Fill the Boot program. And the ordinance is very clear that it would prohibit any driver or passenger in a vehicle from passing anything to someone in the vehicle right-of-way on a public street, unless the vehicle is parked legally. So it would outlaw the practice that has been going on for many years in many communities in Oregon and around the country to raise money for the Muscular Dystrophy Association by firefighters in their off-duty hours. Here in Eugene, Eugene firefighters filled the boot last year at Autzen Stadium before a football game. But they might decide in the future that they'd want to go back out on the street to help muscular dystrophy, but they wouldn't be able to do that if you pass this ordinance. It's just one of a myriad of things that would be prohibited. And strongly urge you to vote no next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy Morris, followed by Ryan Moore.
Good evening, Council. My name is Timothy Morris. I live in Ward 1. I'm here to speak in full favor of the 1% of the CET construction excise tax. I want to thank Councilor Zelenka for taking the lead on that and proposing that amendment. So I have many hats in the community. I serve as the chair and board member of the Springfield Eugene Tenant Association. I serve our county as a budget committee member as well as the Lane Community College. And I am a local community organizer that works to make the city better. But I take off all these hats tonight. I come to you as an individual. I come to you as a renter. I come to you as someone who lives paycheck to paycheck, and I come to you from someone who my day job is to help people on a daily basis get affordable housing. The desperation is there. We need affordable housing as quickly as possible. The projected revenue of the construction excise tax at 0.5% is $1.5 million, so that means that at the full 1%, it's going to be $3 million. Simple math. So if we have it at 3 years, is the city of Eugene prepared to lose $4.5 million earmarked for affordable housing? The wait list as of right now has 11,000 people, for Homes for Good, for the Section 8, has 11,000 people waiting on it. It's currently calling friends and neighbors that we know, people that we see in our community every day that have signed up from 2017. It's 2 years ago. They are not accepting new members now because they are so overloaded with how many people are seeking affordable housing. Both the executive director of St. Vincent de Paul and of Homes for Good have supported the CET at the full 1%, and we need to support their lead and join them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Moore, followed by Joshua Caraco.
Hello, Mayor Venice and City Council. My name is Ryan Moore. I live in Councilor Pryor's ward. I'm a member of your budget committee, as well as a founding member of Springfield Eugene Tenant Association. Thanks for the chance to talk to you tonight. It's always a privilege. At this point in time, you've heard pretty much anything there is to say on the CET, so I'm going to be brief and hopefully a bit esoteric, something you haven't heard before, maybe. In discussing the inadequate housing supply in Eugene, the accepted thinking is that any increase in supply will benefit the whole system. So even in building a new complex of luxury units, you will have people move into those units, and their previous units will now be vacant. People move into those, and then people into those units, and then those, it goes on and on down the system, right? That's how this model of thinking would benefit the whole system, even building luxury units. Now, there's an obvious and significant incentive to build units like these aforementioned luxury units. People want to make money. They're going to build whatever they think will make the most money, right? So if you expand this to the accepted thinking, it begins to look a lot like this trickle-down theory of economics that we've heard so much about, right? Where when you build for the wealthy, the theory is that benefits everyone down below. When in reality, when you build for the wealthy, the direct benefit is to the wealthy. Yeah, I hear some giggles. So tonight you have a chance to short circuit this system by passing a CET in the amount of 1% preferably. We need you to pass this and dedicate the revenue exclusively to affordable housing. There's less profit in building these projects, but it is these projects that most directly benefit our poorer residents. And I'll end tonight with a quote. Nelson Mandela said, "A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones." Implementing a CET is an opportunity for you to put this mantra into practice right here in Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Caraco.
Thank you, Lucy.
Caraco, followed by Daniel Ivey.
Joshua Caraco, Ward 1. Claire, Greg, Alan, Betty, Lucy, Emily, Jennifer, Chris, Mike. I'm also here mostly to support a CET. I also prefer 1%, but anything would be good, although I know you have the votes to probably do that, but it'd be really nice to see a 7-to-1 vote. Betty, you suggested that the current situation with the delaying and refunding developers might be dishonest, and think that it would be more dishonest to not propose an amendment, as you're one of the 8 people who has the power to do that, if you wanted to go that route before voting no on something. Actually, can I do a little research here? Can I get a show of hands for how many of you have read Goal 10, State Planning Goal 10? Okay, sorry, I didn't know if I could do that. Anyway, okay. So at the last time, I appreciate. Sorry, that was not meant to be disrespectful. I really appreciate Lucy's talk on respect at the beginning of this, and I think we can disagree on things, and we can be respectful. And Mike had some words about that at a couple meetings ago or a couple months ago. However, the last time me and some other people came and spoke about the CET, Mike also suggested that we should get ourselves educated, which I thought was a little disrespectful, and I think he could walk his talk a little bit better and not laugh at me when I'm speaking up here, because every other counselor is giving me their full attention in a respectful manner. And I'd just like to close with a CET is something that is flexible money that goes to the people who need it the most. It does not excuse you from doing other things such as the one Mike talks about. It is a false dichotomy to suggest that you can't do this and other things at the same time, and you need to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Daniel Ivey, followed by Katie Hall.
Thank you, councilors and mayor. My name is Daniel Ivey. I live in Ward 4. I speak here today on behalf of the newly formed nonprofit, YIMBY, Eugene Springfield. Our mission statement is to say yes to affordable housing and to give voice to others to do the same. For those of you that may not know, I think it's important to provide context for why we've arrived at the CET. To be blunt, Oregon has restricted its ability to fund any public activity, and this causes many problems that we are facing today in our cities. This is about more than affordable housing, as we rely on the government to fund everything from streets to social service programs to public safety. We don't have a sales tax to pay for these things. We rely on a property tax and an income tax. Income taxes are unreliable as they go up and down with the economy. Property taxes are more stable, but in the late 80s, we heavily restricted the government's ability to use these funds. As a result, housing advocates have searched far and wide for funding from other sources for decades. Our Constitution forbids real estate transfer taxes. Inclusionary zoning isn't the best way to get the cost because the cost ends up falling on the market rate housing adjacent to the affordable housing units. The barriers we've faced force us to be creative with the way we come up with funding for affordable housing. This leaves us with the CET. In Bend, they've leveraged the funds at a ratio in some cases of 19-to-1, not just the 10-to-1, to promote, fund, and build affordable housing. I understand there's a fear about how this tax will be used and whether or not Eugene can be successful as other parts of the state. However, I believe that our city is up to the challenge, and I know that we have an excellent track record when it comes to actually spending the limited affordable housing dollars we've received and making them go along the way, In short, I'm in support, and we, YIMBY Eugene Springfield, is in support of the full 1%, and we support the city manager's original proposal. The fact that this tax does not solve every problem with affordable housing is not an excuse to prevent it from solving some of the problem. Let's pass the CET so we can start working on the next problem together. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Hall, followed by Dr. Jane Katra.
Hi there, my name is Katie Hall. I'm in Ward 2. I'm speaking in support of the construction excise tax and ask that you approve the city manager's original recommendation. As an active participant in the conversation, I ask that you continue to support the collaborative process that was used to develop the recommendations. Difficult challenges require innovative and collaborative approaches. And as much as I recommend and appreciate, as much as I appreciate the 1% approach, I think you need to look at the data and why it doesn't work out for all models. In addition, as the chair of the Committee on Local Affairs for the American Institute of Architects, I want to extend our hand and let you know that we're always here as a resource. And we're always willing to be able to be here to help facilitate conversations and be a part of the conversation when it comes to collaborative approaches for problem solving, as I feel architects help with that whole process. But I do want to, again, put myself in support of the 0.5% CET rather than the 1%, as I feel that it works out better for the format and the model that can contribute to affordable housing without overburdening the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Jane Katra, followed by Karin Knudsen.
Good evening. Thanks for all the hard work you do. And I'm here out of conscience. I'm here to join with my colleagues, Dr. William Collins and Dr. Pam Weibel. I'm a doctor of public health. I taught and did research at the U of O for over 10 years, and then I moved on to work in the community health program at Stanford. I was also served on the Lane County Health Advisory Committee for many years. I'm here to speak about how 5G is a crime against humanity. I'm asking you to do what the officials of Brussels did, where they said we cannot allow our citizens to be guinea pigs. Recently, Senator Blumenthal asked corporate executives about research they had done about the safety of 5G, and they openly admitted, we have done none, and we do not plan to do any. They've learned this from the tobacco industry, because when people finally started suing tobacco companies, one of the things that they were guilty of was suppressing the research. So, answer to that is, don't do any research. So this is an invitation for those of us who have training in health to take the lead, and we're asking you to take the lead. Otherwise, I don't see any other option, but I'm in my 7th decade of life, but this particular issue invites us for civil disobedience, because I don't know what else to do. I also have a personal interest in this. I've had 2 different partnerships, and one of them, my stepdaughter died of glioblastoma in 2002 with a tumor right under where she held her cell phone. My partner also died of glioblastoma. So on the other side of the coast, with a tumor right under where he held his cell phone. He had worked at the Environmental Protection Agency, and he told me people die over this issue. So I'm going to leave, but just tell you,
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karin Knudsen, followed by Dallas Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Karin Knudsen from Ward 3, registered architect and urban designer and project lead for the Better Housing Together efforts. And this statement is in support of the Affordable Housing Fund and the original city manager recommendation for the construction excise tax. Over the past year, Better Housing Together has worked with many stakeholders and our 50 organization partners to better understand our local housing crisis and to build support for meaningful action. Your decision tonight to create a new affordable housing fund and implement the original city manager recommendation for the CET is just such a meaningful action. This policy would create dedicated and diversified funding for affordable housing without negatively impacting the workforce, young professionals, seniors, and middle-income housing. This tuning of the policy is incredibly important when housing for this community is our goal. We need this policy to effectively support new affordable housing without repelling necessary housing supply from the market, and your own economic analysis has informed that original city manager recommendation. With this initial implementation at the phased-in 0.5%, you can see support from multiple objectives. This policy can work on multiple levels. And then in the next 2 years, we have work to do. Last spring, Council created the time to move this conversation forward via the Housing Tools and Strategies process. And the next 2 years is the time to follow through on recommendations to remove barriers to affordability and to steer our housing market towards our community's needs. To see different outcomes, we need to try new things. We need new partners, and it's going to take a concerted effort on multiple fronts to accomplish more equitable and environmentally responsible outcomes. The change is going to stretch us, but we have to do that stretching. We have to do this work together. So we are asking for your support for the original city manager's recommendation. There are many different reasons to support it. It gets us started, most importantly. It doesn't step too timidly. It doesn't leap too far. It's a meaningful step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Dallas Smith, followed by Susan Klein.
Good evening. My name is Dallas Smith, and I live in Ward 8 with my wife and son. I would like to talk to you tonight about the construction excise tax. Some of you may be uncertain what a construction excise tax will do. Some of you may doubt it will increase affordable housing construction. Well, Eugene has the largest decrease in affordable housing construction of any other city in Oregon year over year, last year down 4.7%. So not having a tax is certainly not helping affordable housing. Some of you may be concerned that a 1% construction excise tax will hurt new construction in general and are unsure what will happen because this is a new type of tax that our city hasn't implemented before. Well, people have talked about Bend. I would like to talk about Newport, who introduced a 1% CET that was effective in September of 2017. They continued to see an upward trend in new construction of both commercial and residential buildings in 2018. This is not to say that the two are correlated in any way. If the market's up, new construction will grow. When the market is down, new construction will decrease. A 1% tax does not slow or stop new construction. Something has to be done. If we take the top 20 cities in Oregon, that accounts for over 60% of our population. We have the highest poverty rate among them at 24%. Half of our population makes less than $20,000 a year. Over 60% of new construction has a value over $200,000. Those people can't afford those homes. The market by itself is not taking care of the majority of our population. This is where our government has to step in. This is what our government is supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Klein, followed by Stephen Repicki.
My name's Susan Klein. I've been a professional artist for 45 years. I live in Eugene, 20 years. I'm in South Eugene. I am retired and I now work for the people of the planet. One of the things is 5G. I have this morning received a video from a 38-year-old filmmaker down in Northern California who sent me something very disturbing and I thought I'd play it. Is that possible?
Well, you have a minute and a half.
Okay, I'm going to play it now.
I don't know how well we'll see it, but.
It's off the charts radiation.
So it's immeasurable right now by this meter.
It's immeasurable right now. It can't even come down to a level that it can measure it. But this is how it is inside. This is how it is definitely at this housing co-op, and this is how it...
Uh-oh. Hold on, I'll get it to play. This is important because he did all these measurements and I went online to find out what that device was. There are tons of devices now out on the market, and I'm gonna tell you right now, people are gonna be buying these devices and they're gonna be testing it. There will be class action lawsuits if people become ill. And I know that's gonna happen. I've been studying this for the last year. I wanna continue to play this. I'm sorry about this. I guess my time is passing here.
You also have the option of sending us a link to that.
Oh, so. I will be sending you a link also.
Because you have
start here.
And this is how it is in this Whole Foods parking lot.
He's in Northern California.
The level of radiation is so high that it is immeasurable by my device. And let's take a look at this tower here. Can we zoom in? A lot of people don't even know what this tower is. But it's a cell tower.
And to finish up, he went inside Whole Foods right across the street, and the amount was unbelievable.
Thank you.
So thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Stephen Repicki, maybe he's gone. All right. How about Heather Dean? Heather Dean gave up? Okay. How about John Van Landingham? Oh, there you are. Heather Dean. Okay, great.
Actually, this is my first city council meeting. I didn't know to prepare a statement, but I have been reading up and seeing the studies on 5G, and I guess unlike cell phones, where we have a choice not to use them, and unlike cell phone towers, where we have a choice to move away, I don't know where we're going to go with the 5G rollout. So close to our homes and our schools, and so close to the ground. I don't even know where to move to get away from this. So that's something that we don't have a choice over, and I just wanted to remind people that this is actually quite an important topic. I went to the public town hall on Saturday where we had David Manning and Nancy Nathanson talking, and also Julie Fahey. A lot of really interesting, very important topics about public safety, and I was thinking, after all about 20 different topics, nothing is as important as this, because it's like we are radiating ourselves. So I don't know what to do, and I'm just appealing to you to help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Van Lanningham, followed by Kimberly Gladen.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. John Van Lanningham. I work as a lawyer at Oregon Law Center, Lane County Legal Aid. I live in Ward 7. Like many affordable housing advocates, I believe that the best way to address our affordable housing crisis is a three-pronged approach. First prong is tenant protection. Second prong is increasing the supply of market rate housing, including infill, in part by addressing development barriers. And the third prong is by increasing affordable housing, which requires subsidy, which leads to the CET, which I support. I'm a longtime supporter of that for affordable housing. I've been a long-time proponent of it at 1%, but I'm here tonight to encourage you to accept the city manager's proposal, the compromise proposal at 0.33 and 0.5. I want to encourage home builders and the chamber to work collaboratively with the city and with affordable housing advocates on all three prongs. We should be working together and not in opposition. We share a lot of the same issues. I spend my days mostly advocating in the legislature, which is why I'm all dressed up. And I do that on behalf of tenant protections and affordable housing. And in 30 years of doing that, I can say uniformly it works best where we find a compromise between the two opposing positions. Those are the most lasting solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Gladen, followed by Sean Winter.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Gladen. I live in Ward 1. The other week, I was at a neighborhood association meeting, and Emily came to speak. And she was talking about the income tax that you have proposed. Now, I am one for public safety. I am one for helping the homeless. But she talked about taxing people who are making minimum wage, as if, yeah, they can afford whatever. I want to speak on their behalf, because I would like to remind you, minimum wage is not a living wage in this town. There are many people with minimum wage who are working part-time, trying to support kids, because that's all the kind of work they can get, because the job only gives you part-time, and trying to get two part-time jobs to mesh can be difficult, because most places want you available for every hour that they are open. So it makes it a big struggle. You know, to a single parent living in a one-bedroom apartment with 2 kids, trying to decide between food, medicine, or paying the electric bill or covering the rent, even $1 a week can be a lot of money. Many people who are pulling themselves out of homelessness are working, their first job is a part-time job, and trying to maintain shelter with that, you're just making it more difficult for them. $52 a year might not seem a lot to you, but to someone who views smartphones a luxury item, or automobiles a luxury item, or computers a luxury item, it's a lot of money. It's 26 loaves of bread. That's a lot of sandwiches for their kids. A millionaire football coach or developer could pay $50,000 a year and still not have to give up 26 loaves of bread. So please think about who you're taxing.
Thank you. Sean Winter, followed by David Hoffman.
Hello, I'm Sean Winter. I have a small business. I live in Ward 3. I'm also here to support the CET and in particular to respond to Commissioner Clark's comments last month when people spoke about the CET. Commissioner, I'm here to accept your bet. You felt the need to harangue the citizens who responded to you and dismissively respond to us saying that you bet us. You bet us. I could practically feel the spit. That this will not work. It's a disingenuous bet because you stand in a position to thwart the goals of the CET. But I will bet you that if you pass the 1% CET, and if the city actually uses funds to build affordable housing, which again you could thwart, I'm aware, and act in good faith to create more affordable housing, I challenge your view of economics, and I think that if you do this in good faith and are able to lower rents across town, that is the bet I want to make. If you can do it and you lower rents, proving yourself wrong, I'd like you to move out. And if you fail and rents go up, you'll kick me out. So that's the bet that you proffered that I came here tonight to accept.
Well, I'll talk about it with you if we're going to respond
Well,
now.
no,
Are we responding
thank
now?
you.
As smugly as possible, please.
Excuse me. This is a moment for a public forum. It's not a moment for a back and forth debate. So if you're finished, thank you very much. If you have something more to say, you have 15 seconds.
I am also opposed to the panhandling ban that Commissioner Clark has proposed.
Counselor, but
thank you.
Thanks for that. Counselor.
Thanks. David Hoffman, followed by Zondi Zinke.
Thank you for doing this. Since I wrote up my notes trimmed down to 2 minutes, something else came up. You're talking about federal precedent, but we have a precedent that's right in front of us, and that on the issue of marijuana, the feds say it's illegal, and Oregon says it is legal. So I have some issues and references for you, a small collection. Today, most people are concerned about our food supply, having antibiotics, hormones, loss of nutrition, effect on the environment, and more. When these issues were brought up half a century ago, proponents were labeled, abused, and dismissed as mere hippies. Half a century ago, people were concerned about plastics getting into our food supply and clogging our oceans. Response: that will never happen. The ocean is huge. Search the term human magnetoreception has lots of results, such as a recent one from California Institute of Technology. The reference is here. Note, the human test subjects were not aware they were sensitive to magnetism. It said strong specific human brain response associated with sensory and cognitive, blah, blah, blah. Ever expand, reveal physiological, environment, blah, blah, blah. So, next item. How much of our tax money is going for cleanup of polluted Superfund sites whose owners promised zero, even accumulated, toxic problems? How many women had their jaws rot off from painting radium on instrument dials? Search radium girls. People believe that radioactive elements were wondrous things, widely accepted, believe they cure arthritis, blah, 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 improve vitality. You'll read it later. There's two, I reference it. City of Eugene, City of Portland is going against it.
Thank you.
Can I give this hint?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Zandi Zinke, followed by Stefan Streck.
Hi, my name's Zandi. I'm going to read something from Chris Wigg, who's the chair of the Democratic Party first, and then I'll speak. He writes this to you all. The end result of 18 months of deliberations over the CET is that the wealthiest, best connected, and most powerful special interest group in Eugene has agreed to come to the table only if the city of Eugene pays their taxes for them in the form of SDC waivers to offset the CET. Two different professional lobbying groups, Chamber of Commerce and Home Builders Association, and a volunteer coalition, Better Housing Together, have presented testimony and provided expertise at dozens of meetings, all to represent the interests of the wealthy and powerful. I beseech you to hold the line for the good of the city and your constituents, the latter of whom cannot afford to hire lobbyists to represent their interests. That's from Chris Wigg, the chair of the Democratic Party in Lane County. Now I'm here to represent our revolution of Lane County. They voted this past Saturday on 5 aspects of the CET. By unanimous vote, they voted for immediate passage of a CET at 1%. By unanimous vote, they voted to remove the $1 million tax cap, with 1 vote against and otherwise fully in support of removing the SDC waivers. They supported, aside from 1 vote, they had full support for removing the tax break on top of the tax break, that is the exemption for projects already receiving a MUPTI. And they voted, aside from 1 vote, to write in the allocation section that at least 20% of the revenue will be designated for people at 30% of AMI and below. The city manager has, for some reason, elevated that to 100% of AMI as written.
Thank you. Stefan Streck, followed by our final speaker, Ingrid Edstrom.
Yeah. Well, good day, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to come down here to listen to what the voters of Eugene and Lane County have to say. My name is Stefan Streck, and I love Eugene, I love Lane County, and how passionate so many people are about local issues. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people just aren't satisfied with the way things are going. And I like to do what I can to change that. Now, it's just like this morning. So my neighbor's cat, we're going on 3 years now. This little guy just won't go home, runs out in the rain, insists on it, comes back this morning, the most wet cat I've ever seen in my life. It was like he got dropped in a bathtub. And the Democrats are the same way. They're getting too tired of being left out in the rain. And it's really sad to see. Fortunately, though, we've got an election coming up. It's a really good election. It's not just any election. It's a special election. Now, I've been in elections before, but the problem is they weren't that special. Otherwise, I would have won. Clearly, Stefan Streck is the greatest politician ever. That's what people tell me all the time. And, you know, it's not that hard to, reach out and just make the world a better place. It doesn't cost that much money, and it's not that difficult. Now, the problem is that so many people just don't reach out and say what needs to be said about America. Now, I'm running for Lane County Board Director, position 7. It's a great job. It doesn't pay anything. It's countywide, so anyone who lives in Lane County can vote for me. Now, some of you have endorsed my opponent already, but you didn't know I was running, so I'm okay with that. But, no, anywho, May 21st, vote Streck. Get ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker, Ingrid Edstrom.
Good evening. My name is Ingrid Edstrom. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I have an additional master's in health education, and I primarily work with breast cancer patients here in Eugene. I brought an article that I've just left with the folks up front here on multifocal breast cancer in young women And I'll just want to show that people can take a look at this, but this is actually an MRI of a breast that I know I've handed it up this way, but the breast, and it shows where a woman has had her cell phone up against her breast tissue, and she has a multifocal cancer here just in the shape of the breast, the cell phone that she had in her brassiere. So the 5G, I think, is totally frightening from my perspective. There's a huge amount of medical data about the health effects of the 5G that you're planning on rolling out. What I'd like to say also is that it seems very similar to essentially toxic trespass. The state of Oregon has the second highest breast cancer rate per capita in the nation. And the reason for that was the use of essentially using Agent Orange in the Cascade and the Coastal Range in the early 70s when the U.S. military thought that we had too many snipers in the jungle and we needed an herbicide. So from that point of view, we were toxified and thousands of women got breast cancer from the U.S. military deciding that they were going to spray Agent Orange to see what it did. It went off to Vietnam. We know a lot about what happened to the Agent Orange folks that were there, and this essentially 5G isn't, to me, any different than toxic trespass. We can't control it. People are going to be having these cell towers everywhere. You can't move away from it, and the health hazards are just abominable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all, those of you who survived to the very end of this public forum. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who spoke. I know that Councillor Clark wants to speak. Any other councillors needing to comment? All right, Councillor Clark, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciated that. Last speaker kind of captured the essence of my thoughts here on the interesting thing. There are other countries that operate on the legally on the precautionary principle, where we tend in the United States, in order to maximize freedom, to look at a proof of harm kind of model for how we deal with this stuff. And this idea of 5G bothers me because it's different. I don't know, and that's the problem that I have, is that I don't know if there's harm there. And usually I want to fall in line to maximize the amount of freedom that people get to do. And so I usually fall in line with the idea that proving harm is a good idea before we act on something. But in this case, if they're right, we're irradiating everyone and people without choice to live or do otherwise. So I agree, we should have a work session, and I agree that we should talk about it, and we should look at our local ordinance as it pertains to it, and look at the state law as it pertains to it, and just at least have a conversation that can inform us a little bit better about this, because there's too much I don't know. If there is an option that we could take that that could educate us better on the potential negative effects and what we ought to be doing, then I'd like to take it. So I'd appreciate it if my colleagues were in agreement. Maybe, I don't know whether putting out a work session poll is the right idea, or maybe just everybody shaking their heads if they agree that they'd like to have one. I don't know, however you want to do it. I would like to officially request that then, that we put out a poll. So
we can work with you in putting out a poll as per your procedures. You would put out a poll, and if I think if 4 say yes, then we'll schedule a work session.
Yeah. I was looking for the shortcut here with the head nods, but okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, that closes the public forum part of this meeting, and the council does have a continuing and very important deliberation ahead of us. So thank you. The first item is just a consent calendar. Can I have a motion?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councilor Syrett?
I vote yes.
8. Thank you very much. Okay, so our first order of business action concerning imposition of a construction excise tax. Manager, do you want to speak to this to begin with?
Mayor, given time, we're here to answer questions if you'd like, or however you'd like to do that. I didn't think it necessary to sort of spend a lot of time reviewing it. It feels like everybody understands the current proposal that's on the table.
Okay, I already have Councilor Pryor in the queue. Councilor Sarrett, you made a comment about wanting to be in the queue. Was that at this point?
Sure, that'd be fine.
All right. Anybody else ready to pony up? Councilor Taylor? Okay. All right, Councilor Pryor.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments tonight regarding the CET. And what I would like to do, since there's not been a formal motion made yet, and since I don't need to substitute, I can actually make a motion. And if I get a second, then I will speak to it. I move that we adopt an ordinance concerning the imposition of a construction excise tax on commercial and residential improvements consistent with the city manager's recommendation of December 2018.
Second.
Okay. Would you like to speak to it now? Is that possible? Are we okay? Or are we out of order? We are out of order. We should have done this. I skipped a step.
We absolutely can get your motion on the table. What you have in front of you, though, because you're talking about adopting a motion, clarity and specificity is super important because you're changing your code, and this is when you're doing it. So if in fact what you want to do, there is only one change that needs to be made to the ordinance in front of you for it to be the proposal that was originally proposed by the city manager. So if and I can tell you what that. I can tell you what that change is. It would be to, in section 3.732, 1B and 1 and 2B, you would replace the phrase July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 with beginning July 1, 2020, and then you would delete both sections 3.7321C and 3.7322C. And then what that does is it gets rid of the 1% and it makes, starting on July 1, 2020, the 0.5%.
If the second is willing to accept that as the intent of my motion, and I also want to make sure that this also includes the 2-year review.
That is currently in the ordinance in front of you. It is on page 73 of your council packet, section 3.748, program review. Beginning in 2021 and every 2 years thereafter, the city council shall review the overall management and outcomes of the construction excise tax program.
Okay.
So that's
great.
In the ordinance.
Perfect. Is that acceptable to the second?
Acceptable.
Then I will speak to my rationale for why I'm proposing this. I think how you do a thing is just as important as what you do. And what I want to do, the reason I'm proposing this is I want to acknowledge the great degree of collaborative work that went into coming up with the original proposal, which, as was pointed out before, is the best reflection of our ability to generate partnership going forward. And as was mentioned before, in many instances, it's not necessarily the amount that's in the construction tax fund as it is how you can leverage it, what you can do with it, and how you can then take that money, work with your partners, which is what's happened in other communities, to really begin to generate that housing. Also a clarification, the fund would start to assess money immediately. Money would go into it. The part about SDCs and other things does not prevent money from going into this fund. Money would go into it. The difference we're talking about here is a difference between 0.5% and 1%. And at the end of 2 years, we can evaluate where we are with this. And I think in order to make sure we keep the maximum number of partners on board, working collaboratively through consensus to try to make this system work, would be to go back to the original proposal that was developed after a lot of work, a lot of participation, and a lot of people being involved. I am absolutely committed to the tool. I think this tool is absolutely what we need. I think we need to generate revenue. I think we need a housing trust fund, and I think we need to start using that to leverage money to build affordable housing, especially because our federal money through HUD is decreasing every single year. That money's going away. We've got to replace it locally. So I don't have any question about the tool, but I want a tool that has the maximum number of partners on board willing to work with that tool to make sure it can maximize the amount of affordable houses being built. And one of those partners will be the people who actually build homes. We can all stand here and say we want this and we want that, but the folks with hammers and nails and boards who build homes need to be a partner in this process. And I think from listening to the partner up here, this is what we need to do. So that's why I support going back to the original recommendation.
Councillor Syrett.
And unmute.
Unmute yourself, Claire.
Oh, sorry, I didn't unmute. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor. So I want to say I appreciate the thoughts that Councillor Pryor just shared. I think it's important to acknowledge the work of the Better Housing Together Coalition and the fact that so many disparate stakeholders came together for a common purpose, trying to assist our community in tackling the high cost of housing. But I also think it's important to recall how we got here, and I want to thank Cynthia Kokos for reviewing that history during public forum. You know, I think a majority of council likely would have voted to pass a 1% CET when it was brought to us by the Housing Policy Board about 18 months ago. And I agreed to support the delay that we took. I actually did that at the request of the Home Builders Association because I wanted to keep faith with them that we, the city, were going to do due diligence in looking for ways we could reduce the cost of building housing. And we have made a commitment to do that work. We started to do that work, and I intend to monitor our progress on that work. The original proposal from the city manager to offset the CET with SDC waivers for the first 2 years is a compromise proposal meant to ease developers into the fact that this task exists. And I understand why some members of the community don't like it, but I'm willing to agree to that piece of the compromise. But that combined with a lower rate than we've seen in other jurisdictions is too far a compromise for me at this point. So I'm really struggling to support the 0.5 instead of the 1%. I read the economic analysis that says the 1% would not pencil out for some of the kinds of developments we want to see, and I don't want to ignore that, but at some level it's speculation. So I would be, much more supportive of us passing the 1%, build in to the review that we review the level of the tax and do an analysis of whether that level has negatively impacted the type of housing development that we want to see built. I just think we're giving up too much by staying at the 0.5. So I will listen to my colleagues and I might reconsider, but that's where I stand right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I'm a little confused at this point. This did not change the SDC exemption, right?
No.
Correct.
This didn't change anything except the amount. Is that
correct?
Yes. Okay. So the proposed tax is not really it doesn't bring in any new money. It just shifts money from one place to another.
What it does is it brings new money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But what it does for the first 2 years is says that the general fund would pay for those 2 years.
I understand. So it isn't bringing new money into the city's funds.
Not total new money, but the use of the money is different.
It's changing the use of the money. So I find it deceptive, really. And I can't vote for it in that way. If we had a straight out CET, that's another matter. I wouldn't vote for just shifting money and pretending that it's new money. I also object to the limit of $1 million, and I need my glasses. The MUPD exemption. Should people who already got a tax exemption should not be excused from another tax. So if we want to pass a CET, we should pass a tax without exemptions and without a limit and without giving back the money in another way. This way it's really duplicitous, I think, to say we're passing a tax and then say that we're just taking money out of the general fund and putting it into another fund. Thank you.
Councilor Zelenka.
Yeah, you know, after studying this for quite a long time and looking at all the options we have before us, my conclusion and prediction is that almost all of the changes that we're looking at will, in the short term, have a minimal or no impact on the supply of affordable housing. Most of these items will take about the next 5 years to implement and will have little to no impact on the current affordable housing crisis in Eugene, which is what we were talking about. The market has failed to create affordable housing units in the numbers that we need. And few, if any, of the things that we're looking at will transform the market. This is indeed a crisis. We've heard the stories, and it requires us to take action now as opposed to waiting. So that's how we got here. The original task of staff and the citizen group was to come back with a package of 5 or 6 things, including what I believed at the time would have been a 1% CET. That will move the dial on supply of affordable housing. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. The one thing, however, that I'm convinced will, in the short term, actually create affordable housing and help people either afford or stay in affordable housing are the programs, and the programs that we can create, pay for, or leverage that will actually create affordable housing is from the CET monies. That's the primary reason I made the motion to have the CET go up to 1% in the third year. The difference between these two proposals is $1.5 million a year. That's $15 million over 10 years. If we were to believe what Bend did, and they said they leveraged their CET 10 to 1, that means that we're leveraging affordable housing funds of $15 million a year. The difference between the two proposals, or $150 million over 10 years. $150 million builds a lot of affordable housing, you guys. And almost all of the 9 cities that have already adopted a CET have adopted it at 1%, except for Corvallis, which did 1.5%, and Medford, which did, I think, 0.5%. Unfortunately, voting for this proposal will do only half as much affordable housing as all those other communities if we keep it at 0.5%. As for the 2-year review, in my decades of working with the city, I've heard that promise many times that we can go back and do it. I've never seen it fulfilled. So as city councilors, we do not often put in a position of actually making a big difference. This is one of those times where we can actually make a difference. The difference between $150 million in additional affordable housing is a big deal. That's why I urge you to vote and keep the affordable housing at 1% and vote against this proposal.
Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I would suggest to my friend, Councilor Zelenka, that the market didn't fail at all. The market has worked perfectly, as it does, when there's outside intervention in the market and where that outside intervention. And the way that we're different than every other city you mentioned and every other city that everybody else has talked about that had implemented a CET is the one most critical way. We're the only one out of everyone mentioned who has never moved their UGB in 36 years. The cost of land here is fundamentally different. And the CET isn't going to alter that. It's going to make it worse. Now, I have in 13 years not heard something I think will be more damaging to the community and create a worse problem than this. But I recognize the community working together in the way that it did to come up with this answer. And I appreciate Councilor Pryor putting the original motion back on the table. If it comes to me or nobody voting for this, I'll vote in favor of it for one reason and one reason only, because an awful lot of people in our community worked on it, but I will say out front that I'm doing it for the reason of people working together, and I think that's good, but not because I believe it will have a positive effect. In fact, I'm fairly certain, and I will make you the bet, not the wager specifically, but we'll talk about that it will have, in fact, a negative effect. And that's because the two most expensive things about building houses, outside imposed costs and the cost of land, we're not doing anything about. In fact, we're imposing new costs. And those are the two biggest cost drivers. And that's basic economics. There's no way around it. And if we chase out the people who actually build houses by making it harder on them, the guys, as you mentioned, with nails and hammers and boards, then there won't be anybody to build the affordable housing no matter how much money we do have. And I'm concerned, I'm genuinely concerned that we're creating that reality in our market. We're different than some of those other ones too, in that we have several immediate surrounding, close-in other communities where those folks can build houses and make more money and not be punished in this way. And so I'm concerned that this is not a wise course of action, but I recognize the value of people working together to come up with a solution. Thank you.
Councilor Semple.
Thank you very much. I've had a really hard time with this, and I would rather postpone our discussion, but I know there's a lot of urgency in many people's minds. To get the CET to work at 1%, we have to have more building happening. So we're kind of in a seesaw here. Do we, use the 0.5 and get what we can with that? Or do we go with the 1 and take the risk that we'll actually build less? I'm going to go through the things that I see problematic with this. The lower limit of $250,000, maybe everybody should get the first $250,000 free. I don't like how you get it free for $250,000, but if you spend $251,000, you now have to pay $1,200 to $2,500, depending what percent we took. So I imagine that it's not everybody gets the first $250,000 free, but I have a problem with that being fair. The upper limit, I think it should be gone. I think it's ridiculous. If you have that much money, pay the tax. I don't like it that you get the MUPTI and you don't have to pay this. I was told, well, nobody's going to use the MUPTI anyway, so we should make it a little bit easier. Everybody knows I vote against MUPTIs, so I really don't think they should get the extra help. It's true, there's no new revenue from this at all for the first 2 years, and it is moving money around. It's the CET is going to pay the Affordable Housing Fund. CET gets paid by the SDC. The SDC gets paid by the general fund, and the general fund gets paid by property tax. So basically what we're doing is taking property tax and putting it into Affordable Housing Fund. We're not citywide gaining any money, but we are getting an Affordable Housing Fund that we can leverage into more money. So it's kind of just plain old moving around money until the third year. I have a lot of problems with this, this whole thing. I really think if we're going to do it, we should start at 0.5 and just stick at 0.5, not do the upgrade. And if we actually do have a review in 2 years, we can make it 1%, we can get rid of it. In reality, we could do nothing right now except move money from the general fund into Affordable Housing Fund. I'm going to need a second round.
Okay. All right. Greg, Councilor Evans.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I want to point out that back in July of last year, we went to a point where this council said, we want you to do this. community and get this done and bring us back a proposal that we can work with by December of 2018. That pretty much happened. And now we're at April of 2019, and we're at a decision point. I'm going to point out a couple of things here. The home builders didn't come to the table and say no, no, and hell no. They came to the table wanting to work with the community to provide affordable housing, which is one of the things that I think everybody recognized in this conversation is desperately needed. The second thing is that bringing this coalition together was not an easy thing to do. And by doing this, we're showing the community that we are trying to build some cooperation to move the needle in the right direction. Point 3, first year, I mean, it's worked in Bend. I believe it's worked in Medford. Moving us to 0.5 the second year, I think is a right step in the right direction, with a review before the third year in which we can decide whether to go to 1% or to some other number that would be acceptable and would allow us to develop more affordable housing. I think that for these reasons that I'm going to support Councilor Pryor's motion and the city manager's recommendation, and I believe that we're going to move the dial, which we were not able to do for several months before we got to this point. Almost a year and a half, as a matter of fact. So while other cities were moving ahead of us and trying to address their issues with lack of housing supply, particularly on the affordable end, we were mired in this continual conversation that usually spun out to nowhere. We're making progress. Let's make progress. Let's do the first 2 years, see where we are, and then third year, we could, at the end of the 2-year period, third year, we can see whether or not it is appropriate to move to a 1% CET. But that's the reason why I'm supporting this motion and supporting the city manager's recommendation.
Councilor Ye.
Thank you. Well, Greg very eloquently said what I was going to say, so thank you. I think it's important to remember that while each of these parts is a hard decision to make, and maybe this isn't exactly what I would have written myself, compromise is about finding something that works for everyone and working hard together to listen to our partners and really right-size what we're going to be doing. And for these reasons, I'm supporting Councilor Pryor's support of the original amendment, the original motion from the city manager.
Okay, thank you. I have Councilor Semple and Councilor Taylor asking for a second round. Go for it.
Thank you. Getting back to where the money's moving around, I talked with Denny today, and the reason for moving it with the SDCs is that if we take it from the general fund, we have to do it just instantly. And with the SDCs, we can pay it as it works with the budget. Did I get that basically right? So I don't like it. I don't want to vote for it, but I will because so many people want it, and I need to listen to that. There are a couple things that I would like to amend, and I don't know, can I put a motion to do that, and then we can see what people think about it. So I move to amend the original motion with starting with 0.5% and keeping it that, not starting with 0.3. I think that's a good compromise for the people who wanted the 1% because it will get us more money right from the beginning. And then after 2 years, we can see how that 0.5 went. I'd really like to get rid of the upper limit. I think that's an easy one. I'd like to take out the MUPTI part, but unless somebody else is interested in that, I'll leave it. So I'd like to amend it with 5% from the beginning, keep it at 0.5. Yeah, 5%, come on, you like that. 0.5%. and take out the upper limit. That's my amendment.
So can we, the upper limit, can we point to the specific provision, the total construction, the 1 million? Is that the provision you're speaking about? On page 72?
It is.
Okay.
The 1 million cap, yeah, I want to take that off.
Okay. So that would be, so just so if I'm understanding your motion.
Thank you.
You would be moving to amend House Bill 50, or I'm sorry, I've been thinking about the legislature too much. Council Bill, I just gave you all a promotion.
Awesome.
Council Bill 5202 with the city manager's original recommendation change. In addition to, you'd be replacing, oh my gosh, the sections 1A and 2A with beginning July 1, 2019 at the 0.5% and deleting section sub 3 and renumbering accordingly.
Yes. Any second?
You have a second for that? Okay.
I'll come back to you, people. I really, really would like us to start with 0.5. I have 1 minute and 13 seconds to tell you about it.
You could make another motion with just the 0.5.
Say again?
You could make another motion with just the 0.5 to see if you got it.
Okay.
Postpone, for that matter.
I'd like to make the motion to start, I don't know which one is causing you people more trouble, but I would really like the motion with the 0.5. The upper limit makes it any better for anybody? Can I get a second?
Second?
Okay, can we take off the upper limit? Any second for that? Okay.
I would second that.
All right, thank you, Claire, go! So we can talk about removing the upper limit?
The motion that is on the table right now, that is in addition to Councilor Pryor's motion, is the deletion of subsection 3 of 3.732.
I think that if you can afford $100 million or $200 million project, you can afford to pay in to the Affordable Housing Fund. You are the richest people. Put in the money. I don't see any reason for having that cap. We don't have anybody knocking on our door with those kind of projects. I would like to see that removed. And I would really like, because I still have 14 seconds, for you people to remember that wanted the 1%, you might have been able to have 0.5 the first year. I tried.
Okay, anybody else want to speak to this? Councilor Clark.
I just want to hear Kenny answer the question,
Yes.
why is the $1 million cap important?
So I think there's some balance here that I think is important. I think if you have to first realize you have to get to $100 million before you get to $1 million CET or more. So
and the hub was 47 million?
What's that?
And the hub was 47 million?
Yeah, something in that neighborhood. So, you know, historically for private projects, you know, those don't come around very often. The one that people remember the most is Hynex, which was $1.4 billion originally. I think there's, when those big projects come, there's always opportunities to negotiate because there's always going to be some kind of enterprise zone ask and those kinds of things. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, first of all, to land in a place that makes sense. I think historically what we found, for example, we have an enterprise zone authorization application fee, and at one point we got an application fee that was like $600,000 that just didn't represent kind of the level of work and the fairness and the balance, and it put all of the burden on one project and one taxpayer, so to speak, to pay the burden of that. So I think it's capped for that reason. I think those are going to be probably big economic development projects that have jobs and other incentives that we'll all be discussing. And there is, you know, this big property in West Eugene right now that we don't know what it is, but it could be $100 million or more. And it'd be nice to have the opportunity to have a reasonable discussion about what we do and don't do for that project. So that's kind of our thought process.
Okay. Councilor Syret?
Yeah, so the reason I didn't support the motion with changing the 0.33 to the 0.5 is because I suspect our city manager has done some number crunching on what the potential backfill for that first year of SDCs might be, and I wasn't prepared to just throw that overboard without, more discussion. So I appreciate Councilor Semple's logic there, but I didn't want to second that. But I do question the need for the cap. I mean, I understand what Denny just offered. I wonder if that is included in the CETs that other cities have, if you know that off the top of your head.
I don't know the answer to that, no.
Yeah. So I think we would be safe in passing our CET without that cap. And, in 2 years, if we believe that we have foregone some big opportunity because we were going to require a large project to pay that, we could reconsider it. But I think we could do just fine without that cap.
Okay. Councilor Zelenka.
Could you clarify what the motion is?
Remove the cap.
The motion would be to amend Council Bill 5202 to delete subsection 3 of 3.732 and renumber it accordingly.
Is that it?
Oh, I
That was
thought
it?
you were
Okay.
waiting. I was waiting for him to speak.
All right.
If we were actually doing a tax, I would have seconded Councilor Semple's motion, but this is not a real tax. It's just pretending. I think that I don't think we should have a cap of $1 million. I don't think we should exempt MUPD, people who've already got MUPD. I don't think we should, what else was it? The limit in the MUPD, but I would vote for a 1% tax. But just shifting money, if what we're doing is taking money from the general fund and putting it into a housing fund, that should be a separate discussion. And it should be just straightforward. We're talking about shifting money, which is what we're doing if we do this. And I see that it's going to pass, but I will not vote for it. Okay. I would vote for something that's honest and straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote on Councilor Semple's amended motion removing the cap? All in favor of removing that cap? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councilor Syret?
I vote yes.
5. All opposed? 3. Okay, so that cap, we'll remove the cap. So now we're back to the original Councilor Pryor's motion. Oh, sorry.
Although I'm going to vote against it in the end, if it continues to be just shifting, I move that we remove the exemption for MUFTI, or project that has already gotten MUFTI.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, you want to speak to it more?
If someone has already gotten a tax break, why should they get another tax break?
Okay. Any other comments on this proposal?
I'll comment.
Okay, go for it.
If you get a MUPT, you get 10% property tax. If instead of inviting lower income people to live there, you pay the in lieu of, that's 10%. Now you've got a 9% property tax, you can't think, it's really late. The CET is 1%. So say in Mr. Obie's project, he got a $4 million tax break, he put in $400,000 for the in lieu of payment to affordable housing. And then, so that was $3,600,000. And if he had to pay the CET, it would have been $3,560,000. So the CET really doesn't add that much more on top of the MUPTI that they'd have to pay. I'm okay with that. I don't think I explained it very well, but I tried.
Okay, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I appreciate my colleagues thinking in the numbers there, but I would say that the only reason that incentive exists in the first place, because all of us hate it, is because there's precious little way else to do two things: to make sure that we get multifamily housing built, and that's the thing we've said we want so much more of in the dense core area where it's more expensive to build. And so we'll be penalizing that, and those folks are already, in order to qualify for the MUPTI, doing one of two things: paying a % for affordable housing already, and so they've already paid theirs, as it were, or actually building workforce level housing that folks of average income can't afford to live in. This disincentivizes the building of that we have all talked about that we needed, and I think it's a very bad idea.
Mayor, can I be in the queue for this?
Yes, you're on.
Thank you. I've struggled with this particular piece, and I appreciate the motion, but I have to agree with Councillor Clark on this one. I've gone back and forth about it, but I'm landing on the fact that the MUPTI is a prescribed program that we have to try to get certain types of housing in certain parts of our community, and imposing this tax on those properties disincentivizes people from using that program. So as much as I hate to not support the amendment, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, any other comments? All right, ready to vote on the amendment to remove the MUPTI from this motion, this whatever. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor Syrett?
I vote no.
5. Okay, so that fails. So now we're back. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate that the majority voted as I did on that. But the rationale I use is the exact reason we shouldn't be doing this in the first place. It disincentivizes building homes, and we need more of them. So, that said.
Okay, are we ready to vote on Councillor Pryor's amended motion that also eliminates the cap? The cap. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor Syrett? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, have I got 5? Did you vote yes? Wait, have I got? Keep your hands up for long enough for me to count them. Okay, you got 5. Councillor Syrett?
I'm going to vote no.
No. Councillor Zelink, all no. 3 no, 5 in favor, so it passes. Thank you very much. That was a hard one. Thank you all for your community work. I really think it's an excellent step forward. We'll review it in 2 years and see if we need to adjust it. So thank you all. And
we will do a lot less affordable housing.
Our next final order of business is an ordinance concerning nuisances, amending sections 6.05 and 6.010 of the Eugene Code. Manager, do you need to speak to this one?
No, ma'am.
No.
No, but we are here to answer questions. This also, you've had several work sessions on this and public hearings as well. And
right.
Of course, we're here to answer any questions that you have.
You want to put the motion on the table?
I lost my page.
Here, I have it right here.
Thank you. This one down here, right?
Yes.
I move to adopt Council Bill 5200, an ordinance updating the city nuisance code.
Second.
Any discussion of this? Ready to vote? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Councillor Syrett?
I vote yes.
8, and that passes. Thank you all very much, and we are adjourned at 10 after 10.